Finley, author of The Tesla Conspiracy, and I'm going to show you some more self-defense techniques that you can do with everyday items. Today we're going to focus on small, sharp objects that can be used for self-defense, like a pen or some keys. So we'll be talking about some things that you can do, ways you can use it. Now, one of the things to keep in mind with a pen is that the pens that click might not be as strong for using for self-defense. I'd still use it, especially if my life depended on it. My preference is a pen like this, and it has a nice, sharp, solid point here. Now, I have practiced to learn how to open and close pens with one hand. I'm going to show you how that's done. First is you grab the cap with the bottom two fingers here. Then you use your other fingers, primarily the thumb, to push this up. I put this between my fingers. I flip it over. Grab it with the thumb and the other things. Again, work it into place to slide it in back into the cap. I can open it. I can close it with the same motion. It's good to practice that. The reason that's important is, let's say somebody's approaching me, and I'm not sure I want them to know that I'm armed and ready to protect myself. Well, as they approach me, I might go ahead and grab my pen and just take it out. Well, if they see me opening the pen up, getting it ready like this, then they kind of know I'm preparing for something. Okay? But if I want it to be something I use by surprise, I might take it out, but I put my hand down. Now they don't know anything. Now with this behind me, I can still do the same trick. I can still pop it open, flip it over, and get it ready to use, all like that behind my back. I could have my hand like this, I could have my hand down. Now I'm going to put this way in my hand, pointing backwards in my hand, so that I'm ready to use it. Because from the front, you can't tell that I have any kind of a weapon in my hand. And then I can come out and use it. Now, there are some techniques I mentioned before. I'd like to focus on some other things. And I found a nice bad guy out on the street, and like all bad guys, he's wearing a bandana and glasses, sunglasses. And he was willing to have me stab him and leave him to bleed to death. So we have our special bad guy here to work with. I'm going to point out to you many vulnerable spots on the body that can be used to attack with something like a pen. And some of these spots are pressure points that can be attacked with the pen closed like this, the hard end here, a blunt end, or with the sharp end open. I'm going to leave this closed, and I'll just tell you which spots are good for a sharp end or a blunt end. Okay? Now, the first thing you need to know is just a tiny bit of anatomy. If we can turn our bad guy towards the camera here, there is an important artery system that feeds the body. And the main, most vulnerable arteries are right here, along both sides of the throat. The jugular veins, as they are often referred to. These are arteries that supply blood to the brain. Those arteries get severed, he's going to bleed out almost immediately. There are arteries that come down from the inside of the armpit, down the inside of the arm, across the elbow, the inside of the elbow, and down in between the two bones that make up the forearm. Okay? If I stab into that, again, I'm going to cause him to bleed profusely, probably bleed out and die, both sides of the body. Now also, on the inside of the leg, starting from the groin down the inside of the leg, right along in here, is another one of those arteries coming down the leg. Again, if you can get stabbed into there, that's a fatal stab. On the front of the body. Now the most important vitals, like the heart and the lungs, are protected by the rib cage. So you're not likely to be able to stab into that and stab into somebody's heart. But it is possible. You're not likely to get in position to do that, though. But the belly here, below the rib cage, there's all kinds of vital organs in there. And if I'm going to stab across there, okay, and that much of that pen goes into the body, that's likely to do some serious damage wherever that goes. I showed a technique in a prior video where the bad guy swings at me with the hand, and I catch this, stab right into this, right, and it's easy to find because it's right at the bend of the elbow, start bleeding that way, and I come right across and slice the entire throat. coming on the side of the windpipe where the first jugular is, and pushing straight across and out the other side, tearing the windpipe open and the other jugular vein. That is a fatal move, and that's all happened in about 1 second. Pow, 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 and it's over with, okay? Also, if someone's coming at me, I could come the other way, get behind him, grab his chin, and start working over his neck right here. Pop, 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 pop. If a woman is being attacked by a rapist, okay, and she turns the pen this way, and it is good to learn how to revolve the pen forward and backwards in your hand, get familiar with working it. With anything you're going to use for self-defense, you need to become familiar with how that item feels and moves with you. So if he's coming for me and I'm a possible rape victim, I'm going to have this ready and come right up into his crotch with the sharp end. And I'm going to hit multiple times. Pop, 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 pop. The guy's probably never raping another person again the rest of his life, assuming he lives through it. Okay? Another important thing to understand with a sharp object is anywhere there's a bulge on a muscle is a vulnerable point that can immobilize the muscle. So let's say this bicep, this nice lovely bicep here, if I were to hit the bulging part of this bicep, and this can do some immobilizing as a pressure point even with the blunt end, but with the sharp end, if I stab into that, he's not using that bicep for a while. The tricep, where it bulges, stab into that, he's not using that tricep for a while. There's forearm muscles here, along the sides here, along the inside, wherever they bulge. The shoulder, right here, there's a bulge on this muscle, stab right into the middle of that, he's probably not using it anymore. There's also a lot of vulnerability along the side here. It's actually easier to hit the lungs through the side ribs than it is through the front ribs, okay? So if he's come to attack me, and I can catch this arm, I'm going to slide right down that side, right into the armpit and into the ribs. Or I can go lower, into the kidneys down here, into the lower ribs. Even with the blunt end, if I were to come down on the ribs here, there's all kinds of pressure points where I can press nerves against that. Okay? So there's all kinds of places. Another place, blunt end or sharp end, is the temples of the head. Right along here, there's the temple, this little dip. Right behind your eye and before your ear, right there. Even with the blunt end, I may produce death by hitting that, even with the blunt end. Sharp end, it's very, very serious to be hitting somebody there with the sharp end of this pen. It's not something you do in a fight at school because if someone's wearing the same clothes as you are. This is something you only do if your life is in danger. So now another thing is we mentioned keys. Okay. Now you've heard people say this before, and they're right. If all you've got is keys, and you were to put those keys out between your fingers like this, now you start throwing punches, that is very useful. A punch to the throat, if you can get there, because people have a tendency to protect their throat, but if you can get there, a punch to the throat like that is really going to do some serious damage. But the same kind of thing as before. If the guy is trying to attack me, and I just start hitting all of these arm muscles. I start hitting the neck. I start hitting the temple. I start hitting the side, the ribs. I'm going to do some very major damage. And there's no way they can protect everything, because every attack reveals a vulnerability. So if he prepares to attack me with anything, with any part of his body, there's something exposed. Pow, pow. The belly's exposed. The throat is exposed. There's something exposed with every move somebody makes. And if I know that almost anywhere I hit on him with this is going to do damage, then it doesn't even matter if I'm that accurate. Because if all I do is he starts swinging at me, I start just punching with those keys, I'm going to start tearing him up. One of the keys to self-defense is if you can't or don't need to kill your attacker, if you can discourage your attacker and show you're not an easy victim and they're going to pay a big price for attacking you, most likely they're going to stop and leave you alone. So that's just a few of the sharp objects you're likely to have handy, or things similar to it, whether that is a metal nail file, whether that is a crochet hook, There's all kinds of things you could use in a similar manner. Also, there's pressure points. I mentioned before that there may be pressure points. Now on the hand, there's some pressure points. If I'm to push here with my regular hand, I'm just giving him a massage. But if I push with the blunt end of this pen, I'm going to hurt him very quickly by pushing on that. Okay? So if he's coming at me and I hit that outside of his hand, I'm causing some pain. Also right here, the crease of the wrist, if I were to just push on that, it doesn't hurt much. But if I put something like this across it and apply pressure, I can bring him right down to his knees really fast. Sorry. Hopefully I didn't hurt you too bad there. And then, so again, there's pressure points, there's things you can do with it. The point is, you need to be thinking about what you've got handy. How do you use it as a weapon? And also with that, if I was using the sharp end of that, and he was coming at me with some kind of a weapon in that hand, and if I was to stab just the outside of his hand, if I would just step back and stab the outside of his hand, probably I'm going right through his hand. Probably that hand's not useful anymore. Probably he drops his weapon. So there's all kinds of things you can do with just a pen or a set of keys. Thank you. Thank you, bad guy.